All right, here I have the gauge of my 97 Chev K1500. I've recently bought a new gauge face from Black Cat Customs. It looks like they've done an excellent job with my new gauge face. I went for a silver design, added the Chevy logo here. And here in Canada, so I went with the kilometers on the outside, keeping the mile per hour units on the inside. Then we have all our systems. We got the kilopascals for the oil pressure instead of PSI, Celsius instead of Fahrenheit for the temperature. So got all that. So I'm just gonna go over how to do this. Then I went with some ice blue LEDs for inside instead of those white incandescent bulbs. So this is just a bit of a how-to. There's a few videos on YouTube. There might be better ways to do this, but I'm just going to show you how I do it. Anyway, I hope that it's helpful. So this is pretty easy to take out of the truck. You just take out that center bezel or dash piece, unplug your 4x4 switch, airbag switch. I think there's the cargo lights, and then your regular light adjustment on the other side. I went and added the chrome trim on there. I'm working on the bezel as well, but I won't get into that tonight. I'm just gonna focus on the gauges here. So first things first, we gotta get this plastic cover off. So first thing, you'll just grab this by the stem and just pull off this rubber cap there. So now that's off. So now the plastic cover is ready to come off. So you'll see right here there's a clip. Right here there's another one, and I think there's another one right here. So yeah, that's it. So you just try to press these two, and as you press, push down with your fingers to pop that cover off. And I did that on the other side as well. And see how this separates. So now you can just flip that back, and that should come right off. So I'm just gonna set that off to the side. We will not be needing that for the next part of the process. So, okay, let's start easy. So there's these little pins here for the, I guess the gauge limit stopper, whatever these things are called. So you just grab these and pull right up. See, they pop out. You'll want to set those aside and be careful because they're super small and they'll just fly off on you. So I took 2 of those 4 off. Now, because we're changing the gauge face, we need this whole black piece. We need to pop off these needles. And there's different needles too. I'm not decided yet. I might change the needles down the road. I believe the needles from the 99 to 02 GM will fit on these 90, 90, I don't know when it starts there, 95 to 98s. The only thing to note is on the 99 to 02 needles, the speedometer needle is shorter. See how this one's longer than the RPM needle? But I believe on the 99 to 02 kits, both of these needles are this length. So your speedometer needle, instead of going to there, will probably end up somewhere around here. One thing to note, but otherwise I believe they are the same, and these are the same too. So these we're not too worried about because they got stoppers and they're already down to 0. So when we reinstall, we'll know to install them right against the stopper. So I like to use a plastic fork, just because plastic on plastic, you're less likely to scratch. So you just fit that in there, kind of the middle spoke each on each side of the needle shaft there. So make sure to hold that against that 0 position. Just kind of push that through like this, and eventually it'll pop up. Oh, and I broke the fork. Nice. All right, I will get another fork and I will be back. All right, so we're back with another fork. Hopefully this goes a little better than last time. So again, I'm gonna push that against the 0 position. Just torque up on that. There we go. It's always that initial lift that's always the worst. So once that's, again, hold that there. You don't want it to spin all the way around there. And now I'm just gonna pull up with my fingers for the rest. There we go. So now the needle's off. I'll set that to the side. Don't touch that pin. Don't want that to move. Now that that's out of the way, so I'll pull out this other little needle stopper here. Put that aside too. And we'll do the same thing for this one. So I'll push that against the 0. Put that through. Come on. There we go. Okay. And now I'll use my 2 fingers, and that's off. And pull out that little piece too. There we go. Okay, and that's not a scratch. I guess that fork was just a little oily for some reason. Don't know why. It was brand new out of the wrapper. Anyways, all right. Now these ones, there is no stopper to these motors. Like, they're gonna spin all the way around, right? So you'll want to take note of these. There's different way to do this. Some people, like if you're changing just the needle, they'll put a piece of tape and mark that there, which is fine, right? But we're not just changing the needle, we're removing all this cover here. So if we remove that, we'll lose that tape mark too. So that trick won't work for this. And some people just kind of eyeball it once they reinstall in the truck. Again, I want to try to be a little more precise than that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the high school days and grab one of these things here. I don't know what they call them in English. I speak French, but anyways, so let's start with the temperature gauge here. So as an example, so I'll place that cross right on the middle here, okay? And now, and again, okay. So if I look at that, see, so that's centered there, my 0 is centered there, my 90 degrees is centered on this one. So now, yes, the needle moved a bit, but the shaft is still aligned with that needle. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't move the needle around on the mounting shaft. So now we'll take note of this measurement. So that appears to be right around 67 degrees. This is not quite centered. Okay. Okay, 65 degrees. So I'm going to jot that down here. So my temperature gauge, 65 degrees. Okay, and it's pretty much right on the mark there for halfway between the 40 and 100. So 70 degrees, not quite. Okay, but I got that measurement. So now we'll take this off. And same thing, we'll lift it off and try not to move it. So I'll squeeze the needle so it doesn't move. Place that through. Oh, come on. There we go. I lifted it off. Just gonna raise it straight up. Try not to move it left or right, just straight up. There we go. Again, do not touch that pin. So I'll set that aside. And it doesn't matter which goes where, all these four are exactly the same. So it doesn't matter, just set it to the side. The important is that the needle is set, you know, on that pin, and now we didn't move it. So that should be good as long as we put it at 65. Okay, so now let's do this oil pressure gauge. So I'm setting the 90 degree right in the middle of the gas gauge. Just like that. And the 180 would be right at the end of this shaft here, so I know my angle is correct now. So this one, again, it's hard to measure with a needle so short, right? But I'm pretty much halfway between the 70 and 80. A little more past 75, so I'm gonna say 77 degrees. 76 to 77 degrees. And I'll put 77 for the oil pressure. What I do, I'll pinch the needle and kind of plant my fingers onto the gauge like that to prevent the needle moving side to side. Then I go underneath, lift up a bit like that, and as soon as I feel it move, and then it gives me enough room, my fingers can go underneath, and then I pull it straight up while keeping this pin down. So this is the tough part right here. You want to pinch it and not have it move. There we go. Place that under here. There we go. Just like that, kind of. Okay, and straight up. There. That's another one done. Put that aside. Yeah, that'll work perfectly. Okay. So 90 degree there, 180 there. And looking at it this way, we are at 22, 23 degrees. Okay, so gas, 22 degrees. So I'm just gonna do this here. And if we look at it this way, it's a hair over 3/4, right? So I'll just remember. Okay, so right there. Yeah, perfect. A hair over 3/4, it didn't move. And straight up. Okay, this one, I guess I'll go this way. So I'll know it's essentially at 0, but on the new gauge, the 9 is not exactly at the same place, just because they did it differently with the font. Like, and this is nothing wrong with the gauge face, but it's just a different font, right? So see how here the 9 is directly under the low mark, whereas on this one, the 9 is like pretty far below the low mark. So if I put it right on the 9, it won't be exactly at the same place. So, and again, I'll adjust these in the truck. I'm just being a bit anal here on the way I measure this. Okay, so perfectly 90, perfectly 0, and that is sitting at 122 degrees. Let's lift that up. That one came off easy. So I think this is just stuck on that piece. So this corner flips out easy. If you can see, there's just like a foam pad, and otherwise, you know. So I'm going to start here and kind of work my way around very carefully and slowly. You don't want to put too much pressure and bust this. It's stuck on there good, you know. It's been on there for almost 30 years. but with some persuasion, it's coming off. So we're doing it this way. Executive decision. This is sketchy, not gonna lie. Yeah, see, it's just stuck on there. This is sketchy. That's it. And you can see in here, see your odometer, all the little gears. That's the thing I like with these old trucks. It's all mechanical and the circuit board is simple. Now we're gonna install this beautiful gauge face. And there's some instructions here. Should have maybe read that before starting this in case there's a special procedure. I'll set that aside. Yeah, so they kind of explain how to do this. They're using 2 knives here to do it. I still prefer my fork method because the plastic fork won't scratch as much as a stainless steel knife. Anyway, so I'll just set that aside. So we're at the point where we're good to reinstall this here. And there's some 3M backing around all these there. So at first, before I open these stickers to stick that, I'm just gonna put this on here loosely to kind of make sure, yeah, everything appears to line up, right? All these are in the right spots. My cutout for the odometer works, trip works. So honestly, I'm very happy with this. So, okay, so let's do that. Okay, one thing to note here, on the old gauge, see how there's these dividers to divide the lights, so if one light goes on, it doesn't backlight the one next to it. Which it shouldn't, because this is pretty much right against the plastic, but this would help, obviously. And the new gauge doesn't come with that. And if I try to lift this to see if I can put it back on the other one, no, it's just ripping from me lifting it. You know what? I found a way. I found a way to remove these gaskets without ripping them. Just with my nail like this. Bear with me. I'm going to take these gaskets off and transfer them. This is going to bother me if I don't. Okay, so I went ahead and removed that gauge again there before the sticker is set properly. So this one, I was able to, this one here. I was able to remove it with just my hand. It came off, and the glue from the sticker, the original sticker, stayed on here, so I was lucky. So see how this is indented compared to this? If you don't put these gaskets on, if a warning light comes on there, it'll backlight your gauges here, and just like that, the lights from these gauges are might seep into there and backlight your warning lights, right? So you'll be driving and you'll see your warning lights on very faintly, even though they're not on. So me, that's something that would bothers me. Everyone's different. If you don't care about that, don't do it. Anyway, this kind of just sits in here, and see, that fills up that gap and kind of individualizes out each light. And that, I think there's still enough glue on there that'll stick on the original gauge face, and you'll never be able to center that on here perfectly. So what I do is place that in here, and see, that won't move, and then when you install the gauge face, it'll stick to that. The other one here is being a pain. I tried to lift it the same way I did with this one, with my nail and the gaskets ripping before the glue. So I'm gonna use an X-Acto knife here, try to get into here with that, see if there's
any way I can possibly save this one. We're trying to save a sticker from that's 30 years older, you know, like, I'm definitely asking a lot there, but, let's see if I can, it looks like it's working. Yeah, we're in business. So be very, very careful cutting this, not to cut yourself. And, you know, if you're doing a gauge kit, don't expect that you're going to do that in an hour and then go hang out with your friends in the afternoon to watch a Super Bowl game. It's not going to happen that way. You don't be in a rush when you do this job. And once you got a grip of it, try to use your hand, and I'll tell you why. When you pull on it this way, I don't know if you'll see that, but the glue kind of stays on the original gasket. So you retain the stickiness of it. If you use a knife to cut it all the way, you're cutting the glue filaments, and most of that will stay on the gauge face, and then your gasket won't stick properly anymore. So there's many ways to do this. Like I said, there's a few YouTube videos. I was trying to find a YouTube video to see if I could get any more information on this for myself on how to do a gauge face swap. And it seems YouTube has, you know, half a dozen videos of actual gauge swaps, people changing these out, or it'll show how to fix motors and all that, change the lights, which is fine and dandy. But I found that no one actually removed the gauge face and showed how to do that. So I hope that you find this YouTube video useful. And, you know, like, as you can see, I'm not a big time channel. My videos aren't monetized. I don't bank on these videos at all. But if I can help someone on the way, the same way that other people help me sometimes when I need to learn how to do something, you know, that's just kind of my way of returning the favor. So if you like it, throw on a thumbs up, you know, and I will let me know that my video helped someone else. Alright, so now this is installed. I guess I kind of lost a bit of my sticker power there, but yeah, that's clean, so that's good. Okay, attempt 2. I'll start at this end, put that on that pin, make sure my odometers are lined up. See, I'm trying to I can play with it a bit like this. So before I stick that, I'll make sure the odometers are lined up properly. And this one, you kind of want to line up the hole with that. And okay, so now I lift that up like that. Line up this pin first. And now press down. So now you got the stickers around each one of these holding it. Okay, so now that's installed. So now we can place back our needles. So I'm gonna start with my RPM needle, and actually I'll put my stopper pin, because when we removed it, it was right against the stopper pin. So I'll place that in there, put them all the way there, make sure they're not gonna fall out, because you don't want these bouncing around at the bottom of your dashboard. So make sure they're done right. So, and see, so this is what I was saying earlier. The 99 to 02 different needles they sell, your speedometer will be this length too, right? So essentially that would come out to something like this, right? So it's not terrible. It definitely covers your units inside, but you know, like, it doesn't go on the micro lines there. So
if you're okay with that, by all means, change your needles. Me, I'm undecided. I might change them down the road, but for now, that's what we have. So anyway, so to reinstall this, don't sit that on the pin yet. Kind of put your needle over it, but touch the stopper pin with that, and once that's leaning on the stopper pin, press down. There we go. We're at 0 RPM right on the stopper, so that's what we want. Okay, so now we can place our red line stopper as well. So, and now see, my Chevy logo should be blue. And I'm saying blue because the LEDs we're going to install shortly are blue. So here I'm just gonna stick all these limiter pins in. All right, so let's do our speedometer needle. So same thing. Right on the 0, so that's perfect. That looks actually nice with the orange needles. I was contemplating getting clear ones, but I'm undecided. But for now, I'm happy with the way that looks. It's definitely nicer than before. So let's start with our gas gauge, okay? So the gas gauge, and we were this way, 22 degrees. This is gonna be challenging here. Okay, well I know 22. Here, let's do it this way. I'll eyeball it. So right on the pin there, right on the pin, right on the pin, 22 degrees. That's a tad over 3/4. So we're gonna place it. There we go. And I'm just placing these down maybe 1/8 of an inch just so they don't fall off there. Okay, then the battery was 122 degrees this way. I'll place that like that. 122. So 122 will bring me right under the 9. There we go. Where's that at? 122. See, so this isn't exact there, but when you change a gauge face, unless anyone knows another method, I don't, there's no way of having it perfect, because you can mark it on the gauge. Normally, if you're just, maintaining the motor, you're removing the needle, then you'll have your mark. But here you're changing the gauge face, so you lose your mark entirely. So there's no way of marking it other than measuring your angles, or just leaving them off and eyeballing it once you're back in the truck, which I don't fully agree with. I mean, for gauges like, example, your voltage, your fuel oil pressure, that should be a 0 once you put the ignition on, then it's easy to re-eyeball 0, right? But your fuel, if you're at 3/4 tank or a hair over, how are you gonna eyeball? You're not gonna get it exactly. It's not as if there's a mark, you can put it right on the mark. Anyway. All right, so now the oil pressure was at 77. So if I place the 90 right on there, 180 on the other one, so 77 would bring me pretty much a hair under the line between 1/4 and 1/2 there. So I'm just placing it loosely on there. I didn't put any pressure yet.
I'm just going to measure that again roughly to see if that makes sense. 77 bang on. So I'll just put a tad bit of pressure on there. And right now the needle's locked in with the shaft, so if it moves a bit, it doesn't matter because it'll reposition itself as soon as it's back in the truck. But I believe the KPA gauge will go back down to 0 when I go in. So for that one, the battery, those we can readjust. Coolant too, my truck's been parked for about 4 hours there, so it should be under the 40 Celsius. So we'll know that once I'm in the truck, that one should be at the 40. If it's at the 125, we know there's an issue. That or my truck's on fire. Okay, temp 65. So 65, that means it was right on the 70. I think that's what I said earlier. Or hair under. So we will put that one like this. And does this make sense? Now we're right on 65. Yeah. So I'll press that down a bit, and again, I don't want it too far down because if I need to readjust it in the truck, I want that possibility. All right. So technically now we'd be ready to reinstall this. However, we're doing an LED swap. So now we're going to jump into that. So you can't flip that upside down because of this pin here. You know what? Just because I don't want to put pressure on the needles, I will put this back right now, and then we're going to remove it again when we install in the truck to be able to adjust the gauges. I'm just going to put it in so that we're not putting pressure on the needles, okay? Okay. So, basically these big bulbs will be the main ones that backlight the gauge. And GM actually noted all of these, you know. The main ones that'll say ILL for illumination. And then, you know, this one, left turn, right turn, seat belt, ABS. Okay, so let's start with these main illumination ones. So you should be able to remove it with just your hand. So see, it's an incandescent bulb. So there's these ones I bought on eBay. The kit comes with enough bulbs to do your main ones on here, and then the temperature gauge. So now the part that sucks is LEDs are only one polarity. What that means is incandescent bulbs, if I put the bulb this way or flip it 180 degrees this way, it doesn't matter, it'll work both ways. LED, it's not like that. So you put it in, and if it doesn't work, you gotta take it out and flip it 180 degrees, and then it'll work. So here's the part that sucks. So I'll have to install these in the truck, and there's a good chance I won't get all of them right. So then I'll have to remove all this and flip all the ones that didn't light up. I guess you just have to install it and pray that you got it right. And if part of your dash is kind of dark, well, I guess that means that light is not working, so you'll have to remove this again. Oh my gosh. Some of these are really tight. So, and it's a good idea to keep these bulbs aside if they still work. Don't throw them out. Me, I always keep them because you know what? You probably never use them again. But if you have bulbs that break, and sometimes if you buy LEDs and you do an LED swap, sometimes you'll get cheap LEDs and they'll all burn within a year.
And some LEDs will last forever. So I like to keep the old bulbs around just in case the LEDs are a pain in the butt or something. Then, you know, I can go back to the old bulbs and not have to spend another 20 bucks to replace them all. And when you remove this, if these bend up there, make sure to press that back down with your fingernail, because one part that's crucial on these trucks, whenever you work on one of these gauge faces, you just line up these two tabs there in the nose and twist about quarter turn, is these right here, because that's what makes contact in the truck. So you want to make sure that these are not folded up, otherwise you're gonna have a lot of problems. Okay, so now for these two lights, I have two more of those big bulbs in here. One of them's for seatbelt and the other one's for the daytime running lights. I disabled the daytime running lights in my truck. And then the seatbelt, I mean, that's already too bright. I wear my seatbelt all the time, but when that light's on, it's a red icon. This would be a blue light, so I'm just gonna leave those two to regular light bulbs. I'm not gonna bother changing those to LED. Now I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these small ones. Brake, right, left turn. You know, do you want those blue behind the green and whatever icons? It might alternate the color. What is this? Security, battery. No, I don't want any of those to be blue. I'll just leave those original. Alright, so what I've discovered is for these small ones, you can actually use an 8mm socket like that. Basically, the two edges there will sit right on the edge there. So, just going to remove that. Look how easy that was. Oops. So that works. So I'll just remove that little bulb. Yeah, because I figured I'd put that on for the high beam because the light's blue and the backlight of the high beam is blue as well. And that's kind of one you want to stand out when you use them. So I figured, why not? Okay, so we're back in the truck. I took the cover off the light, what am I saying, the light? The gauge. And just, if you've been watching my video, you obviously know how to take out the gauge. So I just put in those wires for all the switches. Just leave those to the side. Make sure they don't touch your gauge. So everything's in there. I've lined up the gauge. So now I'm just going to turn off my light here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on my my lighting mod. Well, here. And there we go. So the light behind there is obviously working. We had one on each side here, which is obviously working. And then one here, which is obviously working, and one here, which is also obviously working. My gaskets at the top have sealed except right here, but once the glass is on there, that'll cover that. So we know that works. So I'll just go and put the ignition to on, see what happens with those gauges on the right. So my temperature should go right down to 40, kPa should fall to 0, my gas should remain a tad over 3/4, and my battery should stay at 0.
Okay, so KPA is good. My temperature gauge is obviously very wrong. And my voltage is good. My fuel gauge is also a bit off. So that temperature gauge here, I'll turn off my heater. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but this temperature gauge right here, it is about 5 degrees Celsius outside, and my truck's been sitting here without starting for the last 6 hours at this point. So I know that my engine's obviously below the 40. So I'm going to set that back right on the 40 mark. See? Yeah, here it looks like it's off, but so I'm not sure what happened with that one. That gauge obviously is way out to launch there. So there we go, right on the 40. So that's good. This is right on the 0, and see how this one, there's like, well, here, I'll put it from my driver's perspective. See how it's just below the empty, right on the 0. So that's good. So that's what I did here too, right on the 40 below the bottom line. This I don't know exactly, but that's exactly where I had marked it. So it's still there. So I'm assuming that's good. Gas, I don't believe that's correct, because I already had 105 kilometers or something like that on this tank. So I know that's not exactly right, and we had measured it earlier. It was a tad above 3/4. So I think that should be more around here. So I'll place it here, and you know, obviously once I'm done this tank, I'm gonna have to maybe reset it to put it right at the empty mark. And sorry about the camera, by the way. It's just friggin' impossible to film with one hand and pay attention and work with the other hand, you know. So you just press those in there. See, and it doesn't matter. I flick the gauge, so it goes right back. And that's what we want, see? See, it works its way right back. This one, not so much, but see, and now my voltage gauge right down to 0. If anything, that's a little low there. Not sure if I'm able to. All right, well, that's where that LED diode is. I'm just kind of, there we go. There we go, that makes more sense. It's a tad above that line now, like it was earlier. See, now I go like this, right down to 0, right down to 0, right down to 0. So I know those 3 are good now. My speedometer, tachometer is good. My only one that I'm questioning a bit is the fuel gauge, but I think I'm pretty much bang on, because it was a tad above 3/4, and that's exactly where we are. So I think my measuring angles work for the most part. All right. What's going on here? It's because I got the lights on. Okay. So now that that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and put that plastic cover back on there and tighten those 3 bolts, put back my bezel there. So give me a few minutes and I will show you a video once it's all done. Okay, I'll be honest, I've never wanted to die more than this. This is brutal. So what ended up happening is, it is now like 10 p.m. I've been after this for 6 hours. I thought this was going to be a quick fix, a quick reinstall, you know, after doing the gauge face video. I mean the first part of this video. And I went in the truck, I installed it, I took the initial video, I went ahead and screwed that in, reinstalled all of this back up. Then I turned my key and I noticed that I forgot to check earlier, my high beam light didn't work. It was a reverse polarity. So I undid everything again, removed the gauges, removed that bulb holder at the back, and I took the light out and switched the light to 180 degrees, put it back in, and I figured it would work for sure. Threw everything back in here, tried it again, didn't work again. Third time, removed all the gauges, back to this, and what happened is I switched the light to 180 degree inside the holder, but when I reinstalled it, I wasn't paying attention, and I probably rotated the bulb holder 180 degrees as well, canceling out the change I had made. So anyways, so pay attention to that if that happens to you. Make sure to test all your lights, bulbs that you changed to LED. And if you're going to switch the light around, pay attention which position the light holder is, because if you switch that too, you'll cancel that out. Anyway, did all that. Okay, I thought I was good. No, I wasn't good. So this, I actually looked at another YouTube video. What happens is this, okay? I put my truck on, and my engine light was on before, so I'm not worried about that. It's a sensor I have to change. What I am worried about is the airbag light was on. Let's see if it's still on. No, makes a liar out of me. So the airbag light was on, and if it happens to you, it's apparently a pretty common problem after unplugging these airbag and cargo lamp switches. So what ends up happening, oh, and I just noticed my cargo lamp isn't working now, so that's another thing to look into. Anyways, apparently if you unplug that airbag light, sometimes it'll throw the airbag warning light here. And the fix to that is just put the key in here, turn it to off, and then back to on. That should fix it. And it just does basically a reset. But if that doesn't work, you're gonna have to disconnect your battery and reconnect it. But for me, I just switched the key in here, and it looks like it worked because it's off now. So yeah, other than that, I'll take a picture in the day, but everything seems to work. And my high beam, look at that, how bright that is. That looks like it really helped with that indicator light. So yeah, that is my LED dash swap and gauge face swap, and I guess airbag diagnosis video. So anyway, that's my gauge install, and everything seems to be good. You know, my temperature gauge is starting to go up, so we know that's working. Oil pressure, so it bumped up a bit there, so we know that works. Fuel's good, so yeah. I think if anything, the voltage gauge might be off a bit, because it's never usually that high. It's more around 14, almost 15, but now it's like 15.3. So if anything, that needs to go down a bit. So next time, if I think I might change those needles for clear white needles. So if I do a video on that, I'll readjust it. So all right, well, thanks a lot, guys. I know I ramble on a lot, but hopefully my information helped you a bit. And if so, throw on a thumbs up, and have a great night.